Hey friends, welcome to today's video. Today we're getting ready and we're gonna be chatting. I'm gonna be sharing just some stuff, some pretty heavy topics, but in a positive way. So we're gonna be doing our makeup. I won't be talking about the makeup more than likely because I'm incapable of talking about two completely opposite subjects at the same time. So I will try and list all the products in the description box below. Let's get started. Okay, so first we're gonna start by applying our foundation. I am applying La Mer and I am the shade 150 Natural. Okay, so I want to share a couple of little nuggets from a book that I'm reading that I'm really enjoying. If you follow me on Instagram, you've probably seen me share this book already. I'm almost done with it. I have about another hour. When I say I'm reading, I'm actually listening to it in an audiobook, but I do plan on purchasing the hard copy so I can take notes because I have all these little bookmarks clipped in the app. But the book is called The Conscious Parent. It is Transforming Ourselves, Empowering Our Children, and it's by Dr. Shefali. This is what the book title looks like. So I heard her interviewed on Jay Shetty's podcast a few weeks ago, and she was actually promoting a new book. I think it's called Radically Awake or Radically Awakened. I actually have that one to read next, but as I was searching for that book, I saw The Conscious Parent and that by her, and that just kind of jumped out at me. I thought, you know what, I want to read this one first. I have been on this path the last year or so. I mean, really on and off this path for the last 20 years, but really heavily invested, I would say the last, 18 months or so of like just self-discovery and learning more about myself, understanding myself, like kind of unpacking and removing these layers that I've put on myself over the years that I think we all do, I think we all do, and just kind of taking them off and deciding like what is in here that really matters and who is that person, and, kind of eliminating all the things that don't lead to me, being that person. And so I've been reading a lot of books like this. I have been meditating. I have been, kind of playing around with my diet, trying to eat more plant-based and just really focused on my inner well-being, my spirit, my heart, my all of that kind of stuff. And how did I get on the subject of this? So I want to share it. I share some of it on Instagram, and I've been a little hesitant to come on YouTube and share it just because I know you guys are here for makeup, and I don't want you to think that I'm going to divert my channel into a totally different direction. But I thought it'd be fun to, do a video, talk about some things that aren't makeup related that I hopefully will speak to you, resonate with you, or inspire you in some way. So this book is all about parenting, and it's all about, connecting with our children and really understanding ourselves, connecting to ourselves so that we can better connect with our children and we can parent consciously. So to me, conscious parenting means, really parenting from a place of understanding, empathy, and love, and catching yourself and being aware of those moments when you are reacting out of frustration or reacting out of anger or, reacting, just being really reactive. Because I think, let's be real, we all do, right? We all do. I think that some of that is heightened these days because we are busier than we've ever been. We are more distracted than we have ever been, both us and our children, with technology and just all the stuff that we overload on ourselves. And I think last year with COVID, that completely, made us wake up and realize like, gosh, I know for personally, I can say that when, the world shut down last March and all the activities canceled, school was gone, work took a big backseat, and it made me wake up and realize, wow, why have I made us so busy all the time? Is that necessary? It really made me kind of rethink that. And, life is starting to return back to some normalcy lately. And so the busyness and the schedules are definitely, creeping back up there. But I'm trying to take those lessons I learned a year ago and just keep them living today, So I think that, before COVID, I was a reactive parent. I really was, I was always busy and I wasn't fully always present. My work is always on my phone. I'm always on my phone, checking messages, reading comments, replying to comments. And that kind of takes you away, it takes you away from where you are right now. And I would find myself just, getting frustrated or being like, okay, hold on. I just got to do this. Mommy just has to do this. And I was so detached, and I didn't even realize it, And so I'm really trying to be more aware of that and set boundaries with my work and this, set boundaries with this, and really invest time and energy into my relationship with the girls, and not only like my relationship with them, but how I communicate with them and what lessons I teach them and all of that. And I just feel like this book is really helping me enforce that and build that. One of the things, and I actually have a couple of notes here. There was 3 little kind of bookmarks that I took that I wanted to share and speak more about. One of the book kind of starts, and this is really what caught me in the book, is, she talks about how like we really need to be nurturing our child's spirit. And, our child is their own being. They are not our property. And I know that I know some of you might hear that and disagree with that. But I think, our children are their own being. They have their own spirit inside of them. And it's our job to nurture that spirit and, love them and encourage them to pursue that and discover that, and not put them in these boxes of what we expect of them and what we want for them. So that really spoke to me, because I think that we, a lot of us are kind of guiding our children, and it's our job as a parent to guide our children, right? We want our children to be happy. We want them to be successful. We want them to be fulfilled, all of those things, right? But it's very easy to kind of guide them down a path that might not really be what they want for themselves, And I think, and so that was really interesting. And it made me think about a book actually that, someone had shared with me a few years ago, the different titles of these 2 books. And I should preface that I didn't read the first book, so I can't speak from, I read this book and this is what it was about, but just the cover of the book was something like How to Have a New Kid by Friday or something like that. And it said, how to change your child's attitude, behavior, and character is what the title of that book said. And I was, that was referred to me a couple of years ago. I never ended up reading it, but I thought about that title, and then I thought of this title, The Conscious Parent, Connecting with Ourselves so we can connect with our children, and how this book is already off the bat in the introduction talking about how we're here to nurture our children's spirit, not to change it, not to have them, be obedient to us and just because we're their parents. And again, I know some of you are probably hearing this thinking, absolutely they should, their children, because that's what I was always taught, and that's kind of what I always thought. But if I really think about it, like my child is a spirit, they're a person, they are their own being, and I want them to feel like their voice matters. I want them to feel like their feelings matter. I don't want them to feel like just because they are my child that I get to decide what their life looks like, and I get to decide how they dress, and I get to decide, what activities they do. And if they really are passionate about this, but I don't think that's a good enough career path, that can't happen. Like I don't want my child to ever feel like that. But I think a lot of us do. And I think a lot of us do it out of great intentions, right? We obviously love our children. We want the best for them. But sometimes we get a little clouded on what the best for them actually means and is. So that's kind of the general premise of the book. I'm really enjoying it. One thing she said that really spoke to me was, when we discipline in an unconscious state, it is never effective. And I love that, because how many times have you reacted out of frustration and anger and you yelled or you snapped? What did that do? Was it effective? No, it wasn't. All it did was make you feel guilty afterwards, and it kind of crushed your child's spirit, right? And it's just like, take a moment before you react. You're gonna get frustrated. We're all gonna get frustrated. We're gonna get angry. We're gonna get upset, right? But taking a moment to pause, breathe, look inward, and say, okay, I'm frustrated, I'm angry. How can I respond to this in a loving way? How can I communicate with my child right now in a loving way that helps the situation and doesn't escalate the situation, right? And let's be honest, like yelling and all of that always just escalates it for both people, right? The child gets upset, you get more upset, and then you feel guilty. She also says, and this really spoke to me because I have been putting in so much work over this last year, but I'm definitely not perfect. I never will be perfect. We're human. We're all going to make mistakes. But she says, consciousness is not a destination. It's not a place that you arrive in and then you're there forever, right? We all go in and out of consciousness, and no one is ever fully conscious 100% of the time. But the difference is that when you are unconscious, and I say that, but basically when you are really reactive to your negative emotions in an unproductive and unhealthy way, consciousness allows you to like recognize and realize that, right? and kind of process it or work through it, or just recognize your feelings too and say, okay, I'm really upset. I'll give you guys an example. The other day, I found myself getting a negative emotion to Paul, and it was very odd, and I didn't know where it was coming from. I couldn't really explain why I was upset or mad. I just was. We got on the phone, and I was already kind of worked up, and I knew I shouldn't have called him because I was already agitated, and it didn't end well. I was just like, da, 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 da. And then, we got off the phone, and then, the afternoon passes, and then I really kind of broke down what happened. Like, why did I respond that way? What happened throughout the day that made me respond that way? And then I came to the conclusion that because it was it was old negative patterns that I had years and years and years ago. And it made me realize, I have those old negative patterns from my childhood. We all carry this weight of our childhood, right? We were taught things as kids, either by our parents or teachers or whatever. We were taught ways and beliefs, right? And then a lot of us can't even ever break those beliefs. We go through our whole life with the beliefs that we had about ourselves as we were kids. And anyway, I had this belief that, when I was a child, that I was taught, that I have since worked through, but it still can come up. It still is present. It still can, pop up every now and then. And that's kind of what happened. And so I was able to go to him, the next morning and kind of explain, like, hey, I'm sorry I reacted that way. I want you to understand where I was coming from. This is kind of how I see, the different things that happened that led to me feeling that way, and I know that, you probably don't understand why I felt that way because you don't have the experience that I have. You don't have the experience that I had as a kid. And, and it really was nice for him to hear and understand why I reacted the way that I did, why I did that. And we were able to move on. And even though it was kind of hard to be vulnerable and part of me wanted to be stubborn and not, it felt really good when I was. It felt really, really good when I was able to be vulnerable and own it and talk about it. And we just were able to move on. There wasn't this harboring, negative feelings or stubborn feelings, and we just moved on. And it, I think it actually made us closer. I think all of those little instances build on a foundation and make you closer. So it was really reassuring when she said that in the book, that consciousness is not a state that you arrive in. It's not a destination. You are always constantly working to be in that state, and you will fall out of that state, but it's just about recognizing when you do, She also talks about, whatever happened to you in the past does not have to define you. She says that we are inherently joyful, loving people. When we are born, we are not born with hate or anger. We are born with love and innocence. And it's what happens to us throughout our life that layers over that, right? And makes it stop developing, but it's always still there. It's always still there underneath all of that. And, some of us are able to kind of peel that off and work through that in our lifetime, and other people aren't. And unfortunately, they go through their whole lives, being a definition of what happened to them in their past, but we all carry trauma, when I use the word trauma, that doesn't mean that it was like some major trauma life event, but little things that we experience or witness, or, different parenting styles and, just different ways that we all grew up, right? They leave little bits of trauma, and like I said, it doesn't have to be I think the word trauma, we equate that to something catastrophic. But that's not, that could just be having a parent who was highly critical or had high standards of you and expectations and was very critical, and you never felt like, you were good enough. That's a form of trauma, you know what I mean? But you could also look at that situation and you could think, well, that parent just wanted the best for their child and they loved their child, and they did, but it's important to understand how our children are interacted with and loved, and the things that they are taught daily by our actions, how that forms their opinion of themselves. It really shapes who they are. And I just think it's important to understand that as parents, but also to understand that about yourself. So if you have limiting beliefs about yourself, or negative, thought patterns, or negative patterns that you just can't seem to break, understand, like, why do I have this? Where did this come from? What happened to me that makes me the way that I am today? And then I think once you can understand why, then you can start to kind of peel that off, and rediscover your true authentic self. And like she says, we all have love and joy. That's what our foundation of our soul and our spirit is. You know, it's just all the layers that we add throughout the years that prevent that from developing, but we can still uncover that and find that. Okay, we're gonna talk about makeup now. I love this color. This is from the Patrick Ta palette. It is this shade right here, and I really love it. It's just no, everything is opposite in the mirror. There we go. It is this one right here. It's just kind of like, it's like a matte, but it has a little bit of sparkle to it. It's really beautiful and warm, and it's just a great shade to pop all over. Another book that I just finished that I highly recommend is Giselle Bundchen's book. It's called Lessons, My Path to a Meaningful Life. And I love that book. I just finished it, and it's kind of a quick read. It wasn't, I actually finished that really quickly. I listened to both of them kind of, you know, between each other. One thing that she said that really spoke to is she's like, you know, no matter who we grow up to be or what success we have in our life, we always carry the thought of ourselves that we developed when we were a kid. And that is so true, because she was talking about, you know, like herself, and, you know, obviously she's a, you know, mega supermodel, very successful by anyone's measure, right? Career-wise, she's beautiful. She's all these things that we all see. But, you know, she just talks about how, you know, and when she was a kid, she was bullied for being tall and skinny and made fun of and teased. And even when, you know, even in the height of her modeling career, she didn't see herself the way that, you know, we, the public, saw her. She saw herself as, you know, that awkward teenager that was made fun of and poked fun of, you know? And I think that that's really true too. And I think that that really kind of lends into these thoughts of like imposter syndrome. You know, you hear that being talked about a lot. And, you know, imposter syndrome is basically where you don't feel like you are worthy of your accomplishments. You know, you don't feel like the successful entrepreneur CEO that you are, or you don't feel like you are worthy, or you've just lucked out, right? Somehow you've just lucked out to get where you're at, and that you don't really, you know, deserve that or are that person. That's imposter syndrome. And I think that just goes back to like limiting beliefs that we carry around about ourselves, you know? Okay, I'm really loving this makeup. It's super simple, but I'm really, really loving it. I'm gonna line my eyes, and I'm just gonna use the Fenty eyeliner in Puppy Eyes. It's my favorite pencil. It has been for a while. One thing I've been doing the last year that has really helped me a lot is meditation. And this, again, is something that I've been sharing on Instagram, but I've been using the Calm app, which is great. I recommend it. It's guided meditations, and they're really short. They have a library of like, you know, different lengths of meditations that you can do, but I've just been doing the 10-minute meditations every single morning pretty much for the last year. And, you know, you just pop your headphones in and it guides you through a 10-minute meditation. And, you know, meditation is interesting because I think people have this idea of meditation that you're not supposed to have any thoughts. Like you're supposed to like quiet your mind and not have any thoughts, which we can't control the mind. You can't control the thoughts that you have, right? But in meditation, what you're supposed to do is, you know, recognize your thoughts and say, you know, I'm meditating right now. I'm going to let this thought pass. You know, sometimes my mind is a lot more calm and still, and then other times it's racing and I get a little frustrated with the whole process, but that's okay. And the effects and the benefits of meditation aren't really something that is like an instant gratification. At least for me, it's not something that I do and I just feel like I come out of it and I'm like, oh gosh, you know, that feels so great. It's not like that at all. But over time, over the last year, I have noticed it has definitely helped me stay really aware and in tune with my emotions and recognize and kind of understand those emotions and just recognize them, really. I think that's the best way to say the goal is to just recognize your emotions, like observe them, you know, take a moment, pause, observe how you feel. So many of us don't do that. We just feel and we just, you know, react. Yeah. So it's just being aware of your feelings. It's also helped me, you know, lead with love in those moments that I am angry or I am frustrated. You know, it's helped me really lead with love there. And I think that's probably the biggest benefit of it is it's just allowed me that space. The Bobbi Brown Smoky Eye Mascara is so good, you guys. It is volumizing, lengthening, gives a really full fanned out lash. Bobbi Brown is an underrated makeup brand. I don't really see people talking about them, me included, But I have a campaign coming up. I actually already filmed it. It probably will be up before this video goes up. So I purchased a bunch of Bobbi Brown products, a lot of their cream shadow sticks, and I am loving them. But this is probably my favorite purchase out of everything that I bought. This and then that golden bronze shadow stick are so good, but I was really pleased with this mascara. Yeah, I've really felt this urge to share more content like this and just share more messages like this and kind of my lessons and experiences and kind of what I'm learning and doing on myself that is really helping me feel more at peace. But I also have a lot of resistance about sharing this kind of stuff, and I think the resistance is coming from a place of like, you know, I'm scared to be really vulnerable. You know, I'm scared to be, it's hard to be vulnerable. It's hard to be vulnerable to my best friend, to my husband, let alone, you know, the internet. It is very scary and difficult. But at the same time, I think that, you know, once you do and you get over that fear and you have that courage to be vulnerable, it feels so good. You know, it's really how you make change in your life and change in yourself and change in your relationships. You know, it takes that courage and that bravery of being vulnerable. And, you know, the way that I see it by sharing these kind of messages and lessons with you guys is I occasionally get messages, you know, that are really sweet and say, you know, that I bring some positivity to their day. And I love those messages, but to be honest, sometimes I'm like, how do I bring positivity? I don't really talk about anything but makeup, you know, like I don't, and so obviously it makes me feel very happy and like very fulfilled knowing that I bring that feeling to people, but I also feel like I'm being so surface level still, you know? So I think, gosh, if I get this much reward out of those messages and I'm only sharing makeup, like how can I really impact people if I share, you know, things like this? So I don't know, hopefully this video is well received. I know I've been all over the place and I've been so like, it's hard to be vulnerable, you guys, especially from someone that is so, I'm kind of a private person, but I really want to, I don't know, I just want to share more of this content. And a big part of me, I shouldn't even say part, I'm going to remove the word part. There it is. I'm aware right now. I'm already diminishing this thought, okay? And I don't know why, because it's a valid, strong thought for me, but I want to have a podcast. I have wanted to have a podcast for years. I've wanted to start my own podcast so that I can share other topics aside from just makeup. And I don't want to do it here on my channel because, you know, I've spent the last 7 years building this channel as a beauty channel and I want to keep that. And I know that you guys are here for that, but I also want to have another outlet in place to share for those of you that are interested in other things. And a podcast has always been like on my wish list I would say for the last 2 years, really. And I don't know what has held me back from it. But I haven't felt the courage to do that yet, but I will. I'm not even gonna say maybe I will. I'm gonna say I will. I'm gonna do that. And that'll be a place where I share more of this. So now that I've just, you know, proclaimed that I'm gonna do that, I better do it. Oh gosh. Okay, you guys, I'm feeling like I'm sweating. I'm just like all the things right now. Let's finish this look off and wrap this video up. So I'm gonna use the shade Pink Nude by Bobbi Brown. It's a lipstick. And it is also one of my favorite purchases. The consistency is just nice. It's creamy, pigmented, but not too glossy. Just a good traditional moisturizing pigmented lipstick. And I think I'm gonna pop on a little bit of their cream oil infused gloss on top because it is sitting right here. So pretty. Simple look, right? So simple. Okay, you guys, I hope you enjoyed this video. I know it was like all over the place. We will see if it even makes its debut on YouTube when I edit it. But thank you guys for listening. I'll have a link to all the products that I used and also the book that I was chatting about in the description box below, along with some other references like Giselle's book, the podcast that I enjoy. And I hope you enjoyed it. I'll talk to you guys soon. Bye.